Yeah, we do. We got about 4 minutes. Come on in, everybody. Okay, we're going to get going. Ken. Keith, are we up? Okay, everyone turn and wave at the camera. Say hi to the people who are just realizing it's daylight savings. Good to see you all, and actually all over the country and all over the world. This, of course, is one of our most sacred. Is that Andy Malloy and Debbie Gassler come here from New Jersey? Great to see you. Welcome home. Good to have both of you here. This is one of our holy days here at All Saints Church. It is St. Oscar of Hollywood, the feast. And the high priest of this faith is the former head film critic for the Los Angeles Times, and our dear friend, Kenny Turan. So let's just welcome Kenny, and welcome Patty also. Good to have you here. And my job here is delightfully minimalist, which is I just get to introduce you, and here I'll hand you a microphone, and just say,
Mike. Wow.
So what do you think about the movies and the Oscars this year?
Well, I'm looking forward to tonight. I can't believe it's tonight. My cable is not working. I'm almost going to I'm in an appropriate building. I'm going to say a prayer for my cable service.
Well, we're having a watch party upstairs, so you can come and watch it here if you want. So,
But, you know, I mean, I was thinking, I'm really looking forward to tonight because of, you know, I think it'll be very satisfying. I mean, I think even though surprises are always fun, sometimes it's really, I realize that I'm looking forward to certain films winning because I really like them. And you know, it's very satisfying to see good work acknowledged by the Academy. The New York Times had a piece either today or yesterday online about Oscar mistakes, you know, things, years where in various categories the Academy picked a film that over time, and they picked one film instead of another film, and over time the decision has not aged well, and people, you know, just like sports fans who are still angry that, you know, Houston stole the series, you know.
indeed we are.
Yeah. Well, and it should be. You know, I am too, frankly. But, you know, film fans are angry at films that they like that they feel should have won, didn't win. But tonight, I think most people will feel that the films that win are, you know, are deserving. I mean, I think especially Oppenheimer, you know, which is everyone seems to feel is going to win Best Picture. I mean, again, the reason people tune in is that nothing is 100% sure. You know, there are always possibilities for upsets. The Academy has, I think I've talked about in the past, a very complicated voting system, and sometimes the film that's people's second choice does better than the film that's their first choice. I don't really understand the system, but sometimes there are odd results that come about. But I think most people feel that Oppenheimer will win, that Christopher Nolan, who is overdue, will win Best Director, that Cillian Murphy will win Best Actor. And, you know, those are three of the big nominations, big categories. So I'm going to be very satisfied when that happens because I think this is a really quality film. You know, I was talking to Mike just a second ago. My wife and I are watching, I found out I'd forgotten about this, and I think back in 1980, the BBC and WGBH Boston did a limited series on Oppenheimer, like 7-8 hours with Sam Waterston as Oppenheimer. And it's interesting we got the discs and we're watching it, and Christopher Nolan's film is better, but it's interesting to see another take on that, to see how they're doing, how they did it. But really, one of the main things it did is reinforce about how good the filmmaking in Oppenheimer is, what a really strong, interesting film it is. So I'm really looking forward to it winning. I will be, you know, I will be as unhappy as Dodger fans if it does not win. Okay, I mean, I could talk more, but I think I'd rather go.
I'll start off with a couple, which is the first is, it feels like there's a real clash of the titans in Best Actress between Lily Gladstone and Emma Stone, and just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, you know, I have a lot of thoughts.
Good, yeah.
That's probably the closest race. That's the one that people really, and the actress whose name I'm blanking on, who was in Anatomy of a Fall, the German actress, is terrific. You know, she has an outside shot. I mean, the fact that someone in a foreign language film gets nominated shows a lot of passion for a performance, and it's just a terrific performance. But it's, you know, through a variety of factors, I met Lily Gladstone 10, 11 years ago. She had not made a film yet. She was speaking at Sundance at a fundraiser for an independent film called The Winter in the Blood. She wasn't in it, but she knew the filmmakers, and you know, she had such a great spirit. I mean, I wrote about her, even though she was not a known person, you know. So obviously, I have a vested interest in having Lily Gladstone win. I think, believe me, as impressed as I was by her 11 years ago, it never crossed my mind that in 11 years she might win an Oscar. There's so many things stacked against native actors. It's just kind of a miracle that she's there. I think she'll win. You know, a friend of mine has an Oscar rule where he says one of the things you want to think about is who do the voters want to see up on that stage? who do they want to see give an acceptance speech? And I think this year that's Lily Gladstone, you know, and it's a wonderful performance. For me, it's easily the best thing in the film. And I think it just feels like, you know, knock wood, you know, that it's her moment. But that is the closest race. If Emma Stone won, if the German actress won, people wouldn't be surprised. This is like a pick-em race.
So it feels like we're sort of having a tidal wave surge with Oppenheimer. And again, I agree, it's a fantastic film. The film, and I was able to watch all 10 of them, and the final one that I watched, and I really didn't want to see it, was Zone of Interest. And it has, and now it's sort of, in my mind, if I had a vote, that's what I would vote for. And just the entire theme of what is happening within earshot and around us that we're going on our regular lives seems to be applying today as well as anything. And I'm wondering, it seems pretty clear that's going to win Best Foreign Language Film, and I hope sound, because the sound is incredible. Can you just talk a little about that film? Because for me, when I see a film that's like, I've never seen that done before. I felt that way after Pulp Fiction. Yeah. It's like, I've never seen this done before. It sets it apart for me. So talk a little about Zone of Interest.
Yeah, I think Zone of Interest is a remarkable film. It's, you know, it always fascinates me. I mean, there are times when I felt the phrase you read or I've heard is a holocausted out. You know, I've seen, you know, I don't know how many films about the Holocaust, 100 maybe, you know. And sometimes I feel I just don't want to see another one. But there's something about the horror of the event and the enormity of the event and the singularity of the event. There's always different ways to approach it. And this is a way to approach it that I had not seen before. You know, it's a story I knew that this guy existed, but I don't know, have people seen the films? Should I talk? Yeah. You know, but you know, to treat, and you know, it turns out, and again, this is something I'm not sure exactly how it worked. It was shot in a very unusual way. They had this house and they kind of put cameras around it, and the director and the crew were not on the set. You know, and they just, you know, they were in constant communication. They were in some kind of bunker off-site, you know, not that far away, but they weren't in the house. And they rolled it, and the actors knew when the camera was rolling, but they didn't have, you know, the apparatus of the director and crew right there with them. And I think maybe they liked the idea of it. They just wanted it to be people going about their lives, you know, not, you know, just not thinking about what the director is thinking, just performing. But I think it was fascinating. You know, it's a very restrained film in a lot of different ways. I mean, there are scenes, I mean, one of the scenes that I really love, because this is a film where you kind of have to know what's going on. I mean, there's a scene early in the film where, again, and it's the same woman from Anatomy of a Fall, the same German actress plays the commandant's wife. And there's a scene where she, early in the film, she goes up to her room and she's trying on clothes, you know, and, you know, it could just be a scene of a woman trying on clothes, but if you know where you are, and no one tells you this, but you know that she's trying on clothes that have been taken from the people who've been killed, you know, and there's something chilling about the way you just see it. You almost see it from her point of view. Well, these are just clothes. Let's see if they fit, you know. The horror is increased by the way that they don't really hit it too hard. I mean, it's very tempting in films that have moral qualities to hit them too hard. And when you don't hit them hard, I think they're much more effective.
Well, I'm going to open it up to the crowd back here, and I think I'm going to jump back here because that was the first hand I see shot up was Jane. So you're like Jeopardy hitting the buzzer.
Good morning, Ken. Thanks for joining us again. I've got to revisit the Best Actress nominees. I think you tipped your hand. You'd like to see Lily win.
Yeah.
I appreciate your candor that the Academy might select a winner from whom they want to hear. That might be right. That really troubles me. I kind of thought it was about performance, so keeping it constructive. If it were about performance for Best Actor or Best Actress, take movies, personnel, put those aside. What are the criteria you would look for to determine a best performance?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think, even if to backtrack slightly, even if they do partly vote for the person they want to see up there, they do take performance into consideration. They wouldn't vote for a terrible performance because they wanted to see an actress or an actor up there. They wouldn't do that. But if it's a toss-up, maybe that's the way they go. But I think I don't think actors or and in this case the entire membership of the Academy, I don't think they look at this any different than we look at it. They want to be moved. They want to feel that there's something real going on. They think about the degree of difficulty. Is this a difficult performance? Is this something that's easy to do? Maybe they have more insight into that than we civilians do. But I don't think basically they look at it any differently than we do. They want to be moved. They want to be blown away. They want to get up after the film and say, wow, and so whoever gets the biggest wow wins.
Let me get over here.
Mike, this is like a marathon.
Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
All of Us Strangers was one of my favorites, and it packed this emotional wallop that you didn't see coming. I'm very suspect of films that are manipulative, and yet, oh my gosh! And then you add the supernatural element, and which is so fascinating. And I was all over it, and it was really great. Didn't get a whole lot of love, I thought, but what did you think?
I was a huge fan. I think it's one of the best films of the year. If people haven't seen it, it's called All of Us Strangers. And, if you haven't heard about it, don't read about it. The less you say, the less you know going in, the better. It's a very unusual film. It's really, the director is a British director named Andrew Hay, Haigh. And all his films have been really exceptional. They've been slightly different. He's a very, they're all been critics know who he is and film fans know who he is, but he hasn't really had a film that broke through. But this is quite a remarkable film. And Andrew Scott from, what's the TV series? Fleabag. Andrew Scott is the sexy priest in Fleabag. And if you know Fleabag, you know who I'm talking about. And he's one of the stars. And it's just quite a remarkable, and I don't want to say too much about it because the less you know going in, the better. It's a very surprising film. It just does things. There are a couple of films this year that really did things that I felt were kind of different. You see a lot of films and you don't always see things. You say, well, I've never seen anything quite like this. And All of Us Strangers was one of those. And the other one I want to mention, which I'm curious if people have seen here, I'm assuming a lot of people have seen it, Past Lives. Who have seen
Oh,
Past
yes,
Lives?
yes.
Yeah. To me, that did something different. The way that relationship was handled. I just hadn't seen anything do that to quite that successful extent. So I was happy to see. It's got a few Oscar nominations, which for a small independent film is quite something. I mean, that's an American film success story. People saw that film. People liked that film. People told their friends. It made for a small. I forget how much. It didn't make as much money as Barbie, but for the kind of film it is, it made quite a lot of money. It's a real success story, and it's really heartening that a film like that can still, even with all the problems theaters have and all the COVID problems and everything, it can be a word-of-mouth success. So that's as positive a thing as this past year has had.
One of my favorite movies of the year is Anatomy of a Fall. And that German actress, Sandra Hüller, was fabulous in that.
Thank you for remembering her name.
What did you, I wonder what you think about that movie.
Oh, I'm a big fan. I think it's one of the 2 or 3 best films of the year. It's just, again, it just pulls you in. It's a film for adults. I guess that's the first thing that comes to my mind. It's a very interesting situation, a very interesting marriage that you have the anatomy of. A lot of the relationships in the film, either the mother-son relationship, you know, the relationship between everyone in the family. It's just a smart film. It's a smart film cinematically. It's a smart film emotionally. It's really involving. Almost everyone I know who's seen it has really been a fan of it. You know, one of the ironies of this year's race is that even though it's a foreign language film, it's not in the running for best foreign language film. Foreign language films are picked by the country. Each country picks its nominee. And France picked, I'm blocking the name because I'm not a huge fan of it, even though it's a good film, I just was kind of mixed on it. This film about cooking, what's it called? Taste of Things. That's France's film. And people liked it fine, but it's got no nominations. And Anatomy of a Fall, for a foreign, as I said earlier, for a foreign language film to get a Best Actress nominee is huge. It shows an enormous amount of support for the film. And if it had been in the Best Foreign Language category, it likely would have beaten Zone of Interest, you know, and it would have won the Oscar. But, you know, literally, I've read there have been editorials in French newspapers in Paris wondering why Anatomy of a Fall was not picked. And I don't know the reason why. You know, I think a committee picked, each country has a different method of selecting their winner. Like, you know, some countries, it's whatever wins the local equivalent of the Academy Award automatically becomes the Oscar nominee. In France, they have a committee that selects it. And, you know, that means any number of factors. You know, it's a political decision, and for some reason they picked that film. And I think they made them, you know, I think everyone thinks they made a mistake. It's too bad. I'd love to see it, you know, Anatomy of a Fall get even more attention than it's got.
Okay, a question. If Oppenheimer was not nominated.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, over here.
Okay.
If Oppenheimer was not nominated, didn't exist, what would your pick be for the best film of the year?
That's an excellent question. I'm looking in my, I feel like a magician, you know. I just happen to have, you know, I've got a list of it. I can't think of the nominees, and I don't want to leave out one that I might have picked. So I'm going to look, see who they are. I think I know what I'm going to pick, but, well, you know, there's a lot of ones. I mean, again, Anatomy of a Fall, I think, is terrific. American Fiction, I really liked. I thought that was a very strong film. You know, I tell you, if I was an Oscar voter and there was not Oppenheimer to vote for, I would vote for Past Lives. Even though it's a smaller film, I might vote for Anatomy of a Fall. I mean, that would give me pause. It would be one of those two. But I think Past Lives is a remarkable film. I mean, if you've seen it, I don't have to convince you. You know, if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's on, you know, it's streaming, it's on DVD, it's easy to find at this point in time. You know, romantic dramas are one of the staples of the movie business. They've been making them by the dozens for over 100 years. And this one did it a little differently, you know, and that's such a high wall to go, you know. It's really very difficult to do that. I mean, I was flabbergasted when it ended, because when it started, again, I'm not gonna, I thought it would, all I will say is that when it started, I thought one thing would happen, and when it ended, something else had happened. Something unexpected had happened. And it had happened in a very convincing way. It had been beautifully handled. And, you know, I would vote for that. I would vote for Past Lives. I don't know what would win. As to what would, again, what would win is a question that's based on a sense of the community. And so there is no sense of the community of a competition without Oppenheimer, so I don't know what the community would go for. But I would go for Past Lives.
I don't know if you see short documentaries, but I saw a couple of days ago a wonderful documentary about the people who fix the musical instruments for LAUSD. It's called The Repair Shop.
Yeah.
It was the most heartwarming, it just lifted my spirits. It's a wonderful little film. Wonder if you have seen that.
I know of it. Everyone says it's wonderful. I plan to see it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, some offshoot of the LA Times made that film. The Times is starting to try and do whatever it can think of to get a little attention, make a little money. But I think, I think that unit was disbanded, which is too bad. But I hear wonderful things about that film, and I think there's a good chance it'll win.
You can actually watch it on YouTube, which is where I watched it.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's available on YouTube. The Last Repair Shop. And again, it's about the people who repair musical instruments that the kids at the LAUSD who are taking music use.
So in 1960, Marilyn Monroe gets screwed out of an Academy Award for Some Like It Hot. This year, Margot Robbie is totally unnominated for Barbie. And I get the sense within this room that I'm in a minority position, but why is it that silly comedies are always overlooked, especially when a beautiful woman is leading the production?
I mean, this is just, the Academy is always, it's one of its characteristics, and even though they change the membership and bring new people in and bring people in from other countries, they're trying to diversify themselves. One of the institution's biases is that it rarely rewards comedies. It's been this way for, a long time, and Some Like It Hot was victimized by that, and, Barbie to a certain extent too. The Academy just likes serious films. They think of themselves as a serious organization, and I think they overlook comedies. I mean, this has been a problem for a long, the Marilyn, it would be nice if that was the only time it happened. It happens a lot, it's just not right, but there's not, you can't get inside people's heads and say, comedies are important, vote for them.
Thank you very much. I put off watching Poor Things until last night because I had heard so much, kind of that it was dark and all this stuff. I could not sleep last night. It was so amazing for me. It was just like touched me at a place that just creatively. I'm not sure. The question is, how do you maybe put bias away around films that get bad stuff and watch them? How do you like put that aside?
Well, that's a good question, especially vis-a-vis Poor Things. First of all, Poor Things it's a lot of people don't like it, but I think it got 11 Oscar nominations. So, it's not been universally dismissed. There's a lot of people who think it's a very strong film, and Emma Stone is a strong possibility to win Best Actress. Poor Things, I've gone you one better. I haven't seen it at all. I've watched the trailer, and I'm familiar with the director's work. And what he wants to do to audiences is something I don't want done to me. When I was if I still had the job at the Times, I would see it. It's a major film. He's a major director. And, you go in with every film, and you try and be a blank slate as much as you can when you're a critic. You try and say, well, you just put everything aside, and you just let the film work on you. And and you write down, one of the main things I write down when I was reviewing was you write down your reactions. How am I feeling? What's it doing to me? What's it accomplishing? And if I had to review it, I would have gone in with that attitude. But one of the pleasures of not being a full-time critic is that I don't have to go to things I don't think I'm going to like. I once had this interchange with a friend of mine where some film, not this film, came up, and I said, I made some off-the-cuff remark. I said, they couldn't pay me to see that film. And my friend said, they do pay you to see that film. So, when I was a critic, I went to things I didn't think I'd like, and often I was correct, and I did the best I could. If I really felt I was unsympathetic to the film, that's one of the reasons there are more than one critic at major papers. I would prefer to give it unless I really had a strong animus toward it and I felt there was a reason for me to attack it. If another critic at the Times loved Poor Things, I would let them do the review. I mean, films have a hard enough time, and unless you feel it's sometimes you feel a moral imperative to attack a film, but I try not to feel that way too often. But usually I let people who like the film review them. There's enough negativity in the world.
Well, I got to say, in favor of Poor Things, when I saw it was made by the same person who made The Lobster,
Yeah.
which I had the same reaction. He was like, this is not something I want done to me in a movie theater. I will say for me, what it didn't work for me in Lobster, it absolutely worked for me in Poor Things.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, I might have felt the same way, but we may never know.
Hi. Okay. I love little films. I think I asked about the yak in the classroom last year, so this one I've got another little film that we loved, Fallen Leaves. And I wondered if you've seen that. I think it's the Finnish nominee for the Academy Award, possibly.
It rings a bell, but I have not seen it. But I've heard, seriously, I've heard it sounds good. Now, which one is it? Now, maybe I have seen it. Is this the Kaurismäki film? Aki Kaurismäki? I think so. Yeah, I have seen that film. Yeah. At the end, it says, thanks to Jim Jarmusch, and it has that quality. It's very deadpan, and it's very sad, but it's also very funny, and I fell totally in love with it. Yeah, no. So moving, and so kind of rich. Yeah, no, it's I saw it, I liked it. The guy, again, the director's name is Aki Kaurismäki. He often makes these kind of deadpan films. My wife is a big fan of one of them called Le Havre, the name of the French port, which is also very funny. He has a very particular style. If you get into it, they're very amusing. I liked it as well. Yeah. Animation features. I am a fan of, I'm a big Miyazaki fan. And I don't know, for a while he had stopped films, and then this film came. I mean, Miyazaki is really one of the great animators who's ever lived, and we're just fortunate to be alive. Really, I feel we're fortunate to be alive in the era where he was making films. And for a while he stopped, and then this film came out. Everyone was very happy, and then he said, this isn't even his last film. He may make another film, so it's really great that he's working. He makes very singular, personal, animated films. I'm a big fan of them. I hope it wins. I mean, I've watched the Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse movie. I watched about half of, and it's very well done, and it's a Hollywood movie, and it might win because it's a Hollywood movie, and Miyazaki has won the best animated feature Oscar already, so they don't feel that. Sometimes people get a career award if they, but I mean, I'm kind of, to be candid, I'm Spider-Man out, I think they did a very good job with Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse. I have no problem with it. If it won, it wouldn't upset me, but I'm hoping Miyazaki pulls it out.
Mr. Turan, up here to your left. I'd actually like to ask you to comment on the Oscar broadcast itself. I know going back to the days, at least in my memory, of Sacheen Littlefeather, winners of various things have used that as a platform for social issues. And I'm wondering if you think that there is going to be are there any of the winners or the projected winners who might take up one or more of the social issues that are going on in our country today? Yeah,
well, I mean, one of the things I love about the Oscars, and is that it's a live TV event, you know, and things happen and they can't, you know, the people who run the show can't stop them, you know, and you don't know, I have no idea who might say something. Anyone might say something about any of the issues, you know, and I like that. I mean, I think it makes the show more interesting. I just think it's just, you know, I have no problem with actors making political statements, you know, I mean, they have I hope they're informed when they make them, you know. Can't guarantee that. But, you know, I like things that make the show unexpected, that make the show lively. I don't feel that, you know, the show feels politics shouldn't be in it, but I don't necessarily, I'm not troubled when people make statements, you know, so we'll see. I have no idea who's likely to say something. It could be anybody, you know.
I may be alone in picking on Oppenheimer, but I found the sound to be muddy and a little challenging, and I'm sure it was a directorial decision in setting the mood.
In which one? I'm sorry, I missed which film it was.
Oppenheimer.
Oh, in Oppenheimer.
And I saw it at the Chinese originally, and their sound system was quite poor, and then I saw it again subsequent to that. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it twice, and I didn't, you know, again, things like that are personal things. You know, I felt the sound was clear, but that just means it was clear for me, you know. So, I mean, I think if you may have been a bad, you know, the print may have deteriorated, or one of the speakers might have been wonky on the day you saw it. I mean, I'm sorry you went through that. You got to hear these films, you know. Yeah.
Isn't it time for a comedies category of its own? Comedy,
Well,
feature comedy.
Yeah. I mean, the Golden Globes, bless their hearts, you know. They have a comedy category. You know, in some ways, one of the problems. First of all, I don't think that the Academy would go for it. You know, whether it's time or not, it doesn't matter. They have to say they want to do it. And also, I mean, even the Golden Globes has this issue. What's a comedy? You know, and then you get to think that people want to be considered a comedy. You know, it raises a lot of jurisdictional issues in terms of what would go where. I think the Academy probably thinks it's more trouble than it's worth to do that.
Didn't The Martian win Best Comedy one year at the Golden Globes, I think?
Yeah, anything can win at the Golden Globes.
Yeah. So what's a movie that might have flown under our radar this year that you would say, oh, go check this out?
I think the ones, you know, one reason I love speaking, I want to say before I forget, you know, how much I really enjoy coming here every year, and it's because of the quality of the questions. That's why I like coming. It's not because of the long drive from the west side when the clock has changed, you know. That's not why I like coming. You know? But no, I love the questions here, you know, and so I want to say that. Now that I've said that, I forgot what your question is.
Because it was such an excellent question. No, what movie that you've seen this year or recently that might have sort of been flying under the radar that we might not have seen or heard of, that would you say, oh, you got to check this one out?
Yeah. Now, most of the films that fit that for me have been mentioned. I mean, All of Us Strangers was mentioned, which was one of the ones I really liked. Everyone has already seen Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall. I mean, this is a very film literate group. The one thing, you know, one of the things we've been doing a lot that I never did before, because when I was a critic, I was out every night at screening rooms. I'm watching limited series. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of really great limited series, a lot of which fly under the radar. I'll mention 2 or 3 because you know, again, there's remarkably good stuff. I think the one that stuck with me most is a British spy drama called A Spy Among Friends. It's got Damian Lewis and blanking on the other guy, Australian actor, Guy Pearce, I think. And, you know, there's been a lot of stuff done about, you know, the British spy ring, you know, I'm blanking out on their
MI5?
names. What?
Yeah. MI5?
Yeah, the MI5 stuff.
Yeah.
The guys who went to Burgess and McLean and, all,
Well,
there's a
Yeah,
huge.
Slow Horses.
Slow Horses has some, Slow Horses is great,
It's really
but people I assume know Slow Horses is not flying under the radar.
Right.
But A Spy Among Friends is really smart. You really have to pay attention. And there's not a lot of stuff that I feel that about, where I can't be dozing off in front of the TV. I'm going to miss something. And I had a kind of, I felt bad that no one was, it wasn't getting a lot of awards attention when the Emmys came out. And I kind of tweeted about this, and I got a tweet back from one of the creators of the show, and he said, it's okay. We got to make exactly the show we wanted to make. And if it didn't get nominations, we can live with that. And, I think because it got to be exactly what they wanted to make, it's really good. No one said this is too smart. No one said people aren't going to understand this. They let them make the show they wanted to make. And it's a really fascinating show. So that's my top pick, Spy Among Friends. And there are two others we watched early on in COVID, so they've been out for quite a while. There are two Norwegian series that I really liked. And I can't remember where they're streaming anymore, but everything's findable. One is called Occupy, and it's kind of a series about what would happen. It's like a fantasy future political series where Russia takes over, it's Norway. Russia takes over Norway because they want to control the oil. And they don't march troops in, it's a soft takeover. And it's how they manage a soft takeover and how the Finns respond. It's the Norwegians, I keep saying Finns, it's Norway. And the other one is something called Home Ground, which is about, it's got a plot similar to Ted Lasso, but it's deadly serious. Not deadly serious, it's completely serious. It's about a woman who becomes the coach, first woman coach in Norway of a men's first division soccer team. And some of the stuff that happens you can predict, but there's a lot of things that happen in this season that you do not predict how things work out with this team and her and with this town. And these things are so good. I mean, one of the great things that we are having now, because of streaming has done a lot of things that we wish it wouldn't have done, but a lot of international TV is coming to us, and a lot of it is just superb. And so those three shows I would highly recommend.
I want to get you a microphone, so who's talking?
It's first row.
Okay, yeah, can we get you a microphone so the people who are streaming can hear you? Is that Harriet?
I just wanted to know what you thought of May, December.
Quite frankly, I thought it was just okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Todd Haynes is a very interesting director. Anything he does, I want to see. Some good performances. It didn't really grab me. I just thought, sometimes there's an extra inch you have to go to pull you in completely. And it didn't quite get there for me.
Are you still writing a book about Louis B. Mayer?
You are. Did I pay you to say that?
I'll see you after.
I'll see you afterwards, exactly. No, in fact, I just finished. I spent 4 years working on a book. It's a joint biography of Louis B. Mayer and Irving Thalberg. It's for a wonderful series called Jewish Lives that Yale University Press puts out. And I literally just got it. There's a lot of hoops to go through, but I finally went through, I hope, the final hoop, and they accepted the book. So it should be out in just about a year from now. But
Yeah,
really,
and,
thank you for asking.
And we have already agreed that we're going to have a book event here.
Yes.
So we're going to do that. So you go over here.
I have two questions. I'd never seen the dramatic short films in the theater before, and they blew me away this year. I wonder which ones that you liked, and also an older question about The Square. Did you see the movie The Square, and what did you think of it?
Okay. I didn't see, I just ran out of time to see the dramatic shorts. I think sometimes they're wonderful, sometimes they're not. I'm glad they were good this year. I mean, one of the things they started to do that made them better is they started to attract overseas shorts, films made in Europe, films made in Asia. And sometimes those films were better than the films we were making, but I don't know what happened this year. I was just not able to see them. The Square is I saw The Square. He's a director that's kind of in a category with the guy who made Poor Things for me. You know, they're directors who really want to bludgeon you, who want to make you feel uncomfortable. And it's just not something I really want. You know, I don't feel I'm under any obligation to be made to squirm. I don't think the ideas are so remarkable that it's worth squirming for, you know. So I saw it, but I can't say, some of it was good, but I can't say I was happy overall.
So I've got a question about the impact of the strikes and the new contracts. I was talking to someone who works in television, and they said the state of that industry right now is that studios are coming back and investing in the sort of the franchises that they know will make money, but they're really holding back, and it's kind of suppressing production of perhaps riskier things that they're not sure if they'll recoup their investment. What do you see happening in the film industry? Do you have a crystal ball of sort of where things might be going?
Yeah, you know, they're always worried that they're not making enough money, you know. This is, you know, baked into their DNA, you know. And again, I think most of the changes are, as you say, in the streamers, you know, and in TV production, where, you know, it's interesting. This whole business is kind of in thrall to what Wall Street thinks is a good idea. And for a long time, you know, people thought, well, you know, we have to stream it. You know, streaming is good, you know. And so dutifully, you know, everyone who was making film materials started making, you know, limited series. And then Wall Street's, you know, it's like musical chairs. Wall Street said, no, not a good idea, you know, costing too much money. So now, you know, I have heard of people who were given okays, you know, say by Netflix for like an 8-part limited series. And Netflix said to them, no, turn it into a feature. It's too expensive to have a limited series, you know. So everyone's trying to keep, you know, it's a bizarre business in addition to all the other things that makes it bizarre. Now, because they're owned by these huge conglomerates, they want to keep Wall Street happy. So they're trying to figure out, you know, they want the parent company's stock to be not adversely affected by what they're doing. And I think that's happening with the studios too, you know.
So I loved your story of Lily Gladstone and seeing her about 11 years ago. I'm wondering if there is an actor that you're just sort of starting to see come out now that you're like, wow, watch this person in 5 years and 7 years or in the right role, like they're going to be a household name.
That's you know, I'm bad with names. No, nobody comes to mind. I'm sure there's a person that, you know, when I get home, while I'm driving home, I'll say, oh, I should have mentioned, you know.
That's good. Okay, well, we got Gloria over here.
I actually have one possibility, and I don't remember his name either, but we were going to the movies to see a big-time movie, and I said to Bob, we need to get tickets ahead of time. He said, oh, no, we don't. Well, of course, when we got there, they were all sold out. So we said, well, let's go to this movie called The Holdovers. You know, it sort of sounds okay. And we were blown away by it. But the young man who played the lead in that, I thought was a real up-and-coming person. I don't know what you thought about that.
I'm a fan of The Holdovers, and I thought he was Dominic, I think is his first name. I'm blanking on his last name. But you know, it's already become one of the great stories. That guy was in high school. You know, they were going to film in these high schools, and he was one of the kids in the high school, and he was in the theater group. You know, he was an actor. He had never been on film before. Never, you know, no one had ever filmed him. And it took as I've read, it took some convincing to convince Alexander Payne to use someone who was, you know, clearly a good up-and-coming actor, but had never been on film before, not a student film, you know, nothing. And if you've seen The Holdovers, you know that he did a very good job, and I think you're right, we will be seeing, you know, God willing, we'll be seeing more of him, and, you know, he's quite talented.
So we're going to say goodbye to the folks. So wave to the folks on camera. We're going to say goodbye to the folks who are streaming. Join us next week for our celebration of women's ministries in the church after our screening of the Philadelphia 11 movie. We're going to stick around in here for another 10 or 12 minutes. So good to see you all there. Other questions from the congregation? Here you go.
Thank you for coming again. I have a question about why you think Greta Gerwig was not nominated as Best Director, and do you think she should have been?
You know, I'd have to look at the list of Best Director you know, I was just saying this to Mike. These things are horse races. You know, who wins a horse, who wins a race, depends not only on their own qualities, but who's in the race with them. And I don't know I might look at the other 4 nominees and think that Greta Gerwig did a better job. I'd have to look at the list. But no, I mean, she's a terrific director. Some of her other films, some of my favorite films, Lady Bird, I think is a marvelous film. I like her Little Women.